If you're a fellow Canadian that's trying to work in the US, I have some tips for you. First, it's pretty obvious you'll need a job offer from a US employer. Once you have that job offer, you can then apply for visas like the H-1B visa or the TN visa. The TN is definitely easier to get. It has non-immigration intent, and that's the one I'm on. Essentially, that means that you intend on coming to the US to work on a temporary basis and that you have intentions of going back to Canada, and you need to have some sort of ties with Canada, whether that's family, friends, a bank account, a house. You just need to be able to like prove that in some way. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say that it's hard to get a job offer because on the job applications, a lot of employers ask you to specify whether or not you'll need a sponsorship in terms of your visa. And if you're applying for the TN and that's your intention, I would put no. The reason being because the TN doesn't really require a sponsorship. It just requires a letter of support from the employer, basically saying that, yep, we have this role open. We couldn't find someone else for the role. This person's the best fit for the role. It doesn't actually require them to like fill out an application or anything. That's you. You're gonna fill out that application, and that letter of support from your employer is going to help. A lot of employers have counsel that they'll actually offer if you need help with that. For example, my company had external counsel that I got to utilize, and they helped me with the process. But if you don't, you can do it on your own. Obviously, a lawyer makes it a little bit easier, but you can definitely do it on your own, especially if you meet the criteria really well and you can showcase that. It shouldn't be a problem. Now, the thing with the TN visa is that it has this list of occupations, and I think this list was created in the 70s or something. And these occupations are pretty outdated. So there's things like poultry farmer, librarian, and these occupations were probably in need back then, but they're not really anymore. Product manager is not on that list, but for example, there are other categories that a product manager could fall under. So you really just have to make sure that the education that you have, the experience that you have, and then the job that you're applying for all kind of mesh well together and that you're meeting all the criteria. So as long as you can prove that, it's not that hard to get a TN visa. There are two ways that you can go about it. You can either apply directly to the USCIS, get a pre-approval from them, and then that way when you cross the border, you already have a pre-approval. You still have to go through a little bit of questioning with the border agent, but usually it makes it a little bit easier if you're already pre-approved. Otherwise, you can go directly to the border at any time with your package and you can apply in person. Usually that would take a little bit longer, but my husband did that and he had no problems doing that at all. With the TN, you can get approved for up to 3 years and you can just renew it as many times as you want. So it makes it a low risk, non-committal kind of visa that I really like because I do want to go back to Canada eventually. And that way, you know, I can stay as long as I want, given that I have and meet the criteria of the visa. The H-1B is a little bit trickier, and if you're Canadian, I don't recommend jumping for that right away. I would come in on a TN if you can, and then you can apply for an H-1B because it is a lottery system. So you actually have to like get selected in the lottery, and then you can apply to actually get the visa. So it's definitely a bit of a process. So if you have all the time, do it, but if not, try to go for the TN visa. The only other thing that I'll add is with the TN visa, or any visa really, anytime that you cross the border, even after you get approved, you are going to go through a little bit of questioning. If everything's accurate, you shouldn't have a problem, but just know that if you ever leave the country and you come back, you might just get questioned a little bit on your visa, like what you're doing, your role, how long your visa is, you know, valid for, etc. So just be prepared for that as well.